Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into an ancient and incredibly rich text. It's a story that kicks off in this flourishing city, and it lands us with this really deep insight into our own thoughts and actions.
Right.
Our mission, for this deep dive, is to pull out the most powerful bits of wisdom from this story, specifically the story of Cakkhupāla Thera. You find it in the Dhammapadaṭṭhakathā.
Yeah.
It's a tale of just amazing resolve, some really unexpected challenges, and a core teaching that feels just as relevant now as it must have back then.
And what's so fascinating here, it's not just like a historical account. It really digs deep into cause and effect, perseverance.
Yeah.
And these sometimes surprising ways our own past can shape what's happening right now. You'll hear about dedication that honestly pushes human limits.
Right.
And this central idea that really makes you stop and think about your everyday life.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. The story takes us to Savatthi, which was this bustling city in ancient India.
A major center.
Exactly. And we meet this wealthy householder, Masuvan, rich, but he has this one big worry: he doesn't have any children. So here's where it gets really interesting. He makes this very specific prayer to a tree deity for a child, promising, great honor if it happens.
Which was not uncommon then, that kind of belief.
Right. And sure enough, his wife conceives. They name the first son Pala, and later they have a second, Kulapala. Eventually, the parents pass away, leaving this huge fortune to the two brothers.
And it's helpful to remember the context here. At this time, the Buddha is actually residing nearby.
Right, at Jetavana Vihara, mostly.
Yes, the famous monastery built by Anathapindika, and also sometimes at Purbarama, built by Visakha. These patrons were incredibly devoted.
They sound like it.
Oh, absolutely. Bringing offerings daily, but always careful not to, overwhelm the Buddha with questions.
Yeah.
They had this deep reverence. But the Buddha, knowing they wanted to learn, he'd teach them anyway. So there's this real spiritual energy in the air, which is the backdrop for Mahapala's journey.
So one day, Mahapala sees people heading to the monastery. They've got offerings, going for a Dhamma talk. He's intrigued, so he follows along.
Just curious initially.
Yeah. And he hears the Buddha's discourse. It's described as this progressive talk starts with generosity, morality.
The foundations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then it moves to the downsides of sensual pleasures, and finally, the real advantages of renunciation. And this just clicks for Mahapala. It resonates deeply.
This seems to be his big aha moment. He has this sudden, clear realization that all his wealth, even his own body, it's not coming with him.
It's all temporary.
Totally. It won't last beyond this life. So right then, he decides he wants to ordain as a monk. He goes home, finds his younger brother Kulapala, and basically says, it's all yours. Take charge of the family fortune.
Wow. And Kulapala's reaction is just so human, isn't it? He tries to talk him out of it. You're young. We're incredibly rich. You could do good deeds right here as a householder.
He makes the practical argument, the worldly argument.
Totally. But Mahapala's reply shows he's thinking on a different level. He explains that the really subtle Dhamma, understanding impermanence, suffering, non-self.
The three characteristics.
Right. He feels you can't fully grasp that deeply while living the busy life of a householder. And he also looks ahead, thinking about getting old. He says something powerful like, when your hands and feet don't obey you anymore, how can you really practice the Dhamma then?
He sees a window of opportunity, essentially. He's arguing that the monastic life offers the necessary conditions, the focus that he needs right now. He insists on ordaining.
So he does. And after 5 years of study, which is quite a while,
Heck, a good study.
He goes to the Buddha and asks about these two main duties or paths in the dispensation. There's Gyanthadhura, studying texts, memorizing, teaching.
The scholarly path, you could say.
And vipassanā, insight meditation, living simply, aiming for arahantship.
The path of practice and realization.
And Mahapala makes this very practical call. He says basically, look, I'm getting on in years. I don't think I can fulfill that textual duty properly.
He's being realistic about his capacity.
Yeah. So I want to pursue the insight duty. And the Buddha, understanding him, gives him a meditation subject specifically aimed at achieving arahantship.
Tailored instruction.
Right. So armed with this meditation instruction, Cakkhupāla Thera, as he's now known, sets out with 60 other monks. They're heading to a frontier village about 200 yojanas away.
That's a long way. A really significant journey.
Definitely. And the villagers there, they're so impressed by the monks' conduct.
Their demeanor, their presence.
That they invite them to stay for the whole 3-month rainy season retreat, the Vasa. And a local doctor also steps up, offering to provide any medical care they might need.
Which is crucial. And then at the start of this retreat, the Thera does something extraordinary. He asks the other monks, so how are you planning to spend these 3 months? And they say, the standard way, in all 4 postures, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down.
The normal routine for practice.
Right. But Cakkhupāla Thera then emphasizes diligence, really pushes them, and declares his intention. He says he will only use 3 postures. I shall not lay down my back.
Wow. So he's vowing not to sleep lying down for the entire 3 months?
Exactly. He commits to never lying down to rest or sleep. It's an incredible ascetic commitment, putting spiritual effort way above physical comfort.
It's intense. The consequences come pretty quickly, don't they?
Almost immediately. After just 1 month, he develops this severe eye condition. His eyes are just streaming tears constantly, like water from a leaky pot, the text says.
Oh, man.
The monks tell the doctor, who sends medicine, but the Thera, sticking to his vow, applies it while sitting up.
Not lying down as you'd normally do for eye drop.
Right. So the doctor, seeing no improvement, comes to check. And he figures it out pretty quick.
He realizes he's not lying down.
Exactly. He insists, look, this medicine has to be applied while you're reclining. That's the only way it works. But the Thera just stays silent.
Doesn't argue, just silence.
The doctor even goes to the monastery building, looks around, sees no sleeping place prepared for the Thera, confirms his suspicion. He pleads with him, saying the monastic life depends on maintaining the body.
A reasonable point, medically speaking.
But the Thera is operating on a different principle. The doctor eventually gives up, leaves him to it.
So the Thera is left alone, eyes getting worse, doctors abandon him. What happens next is incredible. He turns inward.
He has this internal dialogue, right?
Yeah, like a conversation with himself or maybe with his body.
Yeah.
He asks himself this stark question, should I look after my eyes or should I look after the Buddha's dispensation?
What's more important, physical comfort or the spiritual path?
And he recalls all the past Buddhas, countless eons, where he hadn't managed to perfect the path yet, and he just doubles down, reaffirms that vow. 3 months, no lying down.
And this is where it gets really intense. He basically declares, let my eyes be destroyed. Let them burst. I will uphold the Buddha's dispensation, not my eyes.
Wow.
He even recites verses to himself, like a sharp reminder. Let these eyes held dear perish. Why, Palita, are you being heedless? He's calling himself Palita there, maybe an old name, or just emphasizing the personal struggle. Then he applies the medicine again, still sitting up.
And the result is profound.
Hmm.
In the middle watch of that night, something extraordinary occurs.
Both things happen at once, right?
Yes. His eyes and his mental defilement simultaneously burst. He achieves liberation. He becomes a Sukha Vipassaka Arahant.
Meaning he attained Arahantship through dry insight meditation alone, without having developed supernormal powers beforehand. His physical sight is lost, but his spiritual sight opens completely.
Incredible. So the retreat ends. The other 60 monks, they've also become arahants, thanks to there's guidance and example.
Quite a successful retreat, despite everything.
Definitely. They want to go back to Savatthi to see the Buddha. Their Cakkhupāla, now blind and obviously frail, tells them, you go ahead. But they refuse. They don't want to leave him.
Understandable loyalty.
He convinces them, though. He says, look, just tell my brother Cakkhupāla when you get back. He'll send someone to get me.
So they agree. They reach Savatthi, find Cakkhupāla, and tell him the news his brother is now an arahant, but he's also blind.
Cakkhupāla is distraught, naturally. He wants to send his own son, Palita.
The nephew.
Right, Mahapala's nephew, also named Palita, to go and escort his uncle back. But the journey is dangerous.
Robbers, wild animals, maybe.
Yeah, the text mentions wilderness. So for safety, they decide to ordain young Palita as a novice monk just for the trip, thinking the robes might offer some protection or respect.
A practical measure again.
But here this story takes another twist, a really sad human one. The novice Palita gets to the Thera, serves him really well for about half a month. Everything seems fine. But on the journey back, they're in this wilderness area. The novice hears a woman singing off in the distance, gathering firewood.
Oh, dear.
He leaves the blind Thera there, goes off to find the woman, and he breaks his monastic vows. He engages in misconduct.
Oh, that's terrible. Leaving the blind arahant alone.
It's shocking. And the Thera, even blind, senses it. He notices the novice has been gone a long time, and with his developed insight, he discerns what happened to defilement.
He knew.
When Palita finally comes back, the Thera asks him straight out, have you become evil?
Direct question.
Pālita just stays silent. Can't deny it. The Thera then makes this incredibly firm declaration, I will not be guided by someone so evil.
He draws the line.
Pālita then takes off his novice robe, says, okay, I'm a layman now. I'll guide you as a layman.
Trying to find a workaround.
But the Thera is having none of it. He says, an evil layman is still evil. He points out, you couldn't even keep simple morality as a monk. What good will you do as a layman? He absolutely refuses, vowing, even if I die right here rolling around on the ground, I will not go with you, you fool.
Wow.
He even recites verses, basically saying he'd rather die alone than travel with someone foolish and lacking virtue. He's an absolute stand for purity, even facing death.
That commitment, that integrity, it's just unwavering, isn't it? Even in blindness and betrayal.
It really is. And apparently this level of virtue, this profound commitment, literally shakes the heavens. Sakka, the king of the devas.
The chief of the gods in that cosmology.
This celestial throne starts heating up. It's like an alarm system for injustice or great virtue needing help.
Right, a common motif.
He uses his divine eye, sees the Thera's situation blind, abandoned, refusing help from the defiled novice, and realizes he has to step in. The text says he feared his head might split into 7 pieces if he didn't.
That's how serious the karmic imperative was for him to act.
So Sakka comes down, disguised as a regular traveler. He finds the Thera and offers to guide him to Savatthi.
Just appears out of nowhere.
Yeah. The Thera, ever humble, worries about being a burden. But Sakka insists, saying he wants the merit from helping such a virtuous monk.
A plausible reason for a traveler.
And then Sakka uses his divine power. He miraculously shortens the 200 Yoshana journey. They arrive at Jetavana by that very evening.
Incredible, instantaneous travel almost.
The Thera realizes something extraordinary happened because of the sudden arrival and hearing the sounds of the city so quickly. He knows it was divine help. Sakka then pops over to Cakkhupāla, tells him his brother has arrived safely.
Wraps it all up nicely.
And Cakkhupāla assigns 2 servants to take care of the blind Thera from then on.
So he's finally back, safe and cared for.
He's back at Jetavana. But the story isn't quite over. One day, after a heavy rain, these little red insects in Dhammapadaṭṭhakathā come out all over the walking meditation path.
Like happens after rain.
Exactly. And Thera Cakkhupāla, always diligent, gets up early for his walking meditation before dawn. His attendants haven't had a chance to sweep the path yet.
Oh, I see where this is going.
And because he's blind, he unknowingly crushes many of these insects underfoot as he walks.
An accident, purely unintentional.
But then, other monks visiting Jetavana come along later, see the dead insects on the path near the Thera's dwelling, and they are scandalized.
They jump to conclusions.
They immediately assume he killed them intentionally. They're thinking he went blind because of bad karma, and now he's killing creatures. They reported straight to the Buddha.
Misunderstanding the situation completely.
So the Buddha calls them and asks a simple, direct question. Did you see him intentionally kill those insects?
Did you witness the act and the intent?
And they have to admit, well, no. The Buddha then clarifies, just as you do not see him doing it intentionally, he also does not see those creatures. An arahant, he states, has no intention to kill.
Drawing that crucial distinction between an accidental outcome and an action driven by a defiled mind by intention. An arahant's mind is pure.
Exactly. But this leads the monks to another question. They ask, okay, but if he was going to become an arahant, why did he go blind in the first place? They're grappling with the karma aspect.
Understandable question. If you reach the highest state, why the suffering?
And the Buddha says, that was due to a past deed. And then he reveals this surprising past life.
Okay, here comes the backstory.
In a previous life, the Buddha explains, Cakkhupāla was a doctor in Varanasi. He treated a woman who had serious eye problems. She promised that if he cured her, she and her children would become his servants.
A high-stakes promise.
He cures her with a single dose of medicine. Her eyesight is restored. But she doesn't want to become a servant, so she lies.
Oh, no.
She goes back to the doctor and claims her eyes actually hurt more now than before.
Trying to get out of her promise.
Exactly. The doctor realizes immediately she's lying, that she's just trying to deceive him to avoid servitude. And he gets angry. He decides to retaliate.
The unwholesome intention arises.
Yes. He tells her, okay, I have another medicine for you. He prepares a different ointment, gives it to her, and it blinds her completely. Her eyes, the text says, were extinguished like lamp flames.
Wow, a terrible act born of anger and that feeling of being wronged.
And the Buddha delivers the punchline. This doctor, he reveals, was Cakkhupāla Thera in that past life.
Making the direct karmic link across lifetimes.
And he concludes, this deed done by my son, referring to the Thera, followed him from behind, just as the wheel follows the foot of the ox pulling the cart.
The result inevitably followed the cause. The blindness in this life was the direct result of that past action driven by an impure mind.
So what does this all mean, for us, for understanding how things work? Having laid out the whole story, connecting the past action to the present consequence.
Setting the stage perfectly.
The Buddha then recites the verse that actually opens this whole section of the text, the Dhammapada. It's the core teaching this entire dramatic story illustrates. He said, mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-rot. If with an impure mind one speaks or acts,
then suffering follows one.
As the wheel follows the hoof of the ox.
Let's unpack that a bit because it's so dense with meaning.
Please.
Okay, so mind. Here, mano, in this specific context, means the defiled mind. Like the doctor's mind filled with aversion when he decided to blind the woman.
Got it. Not just any mind, but the impure one.
Right. And precedes, pubaugama, means it's the cause, the condition. Mental states, Dhamma, things like feelings, perceptions, intentions, they don't just pop up on their own. They depend on the mind.
Like the mind leads the way.
Exactly. Mind is their chief, anosya. The mind is the master, the director. It orchestrates our inner world and our outward actions. Mind rot, manomaya, literally means produced from the mind. Our actions, our words, even deeper mental patterns, they all originate in the mind.
So it's all generated from there.
And the key condition is impure paduhena. This implies a mind that's been polluted, by greed, hatred, delusion. The commentary actually says the mind is naturally radiant, but it gets defiled by these influences.
It's not inherently bad, but it gets contaminated.
Precisely. And when you speak or act from that impure state, this covers all the unwholesome actions, verbal, physical, even mental, like ill will or wrong views.
All stemming from that defiled mind.
Then suffering follows. That's the dukkha. It can be physical pain, mental anguish in this life, future lives. It's the consequence.
And that final image.
As the wheel follows the hoof of the ox, it's such a powerful analogy, isn't it?
It really is.
The cartwheel is just bound to the ox. Wherever the ox goes, forward, backward, the wheel has to follow. It's inseparable. In the same way, suffering is inextricably bound to the person who acts or speaks with an impure mind. It's an unavoidable consequence.
Wow. That really brings the whole story of Cakkhupāla. The past action, the present blindness, the present purity, the liberation.
Yeah.
It brings it all together under that one principle.
He does. And the text tells us, after the Buddha gave this teaching, connecting the story to this core verse, 30,000 monks attained Arahantship right then and there.
Incredible impact.
And everyone else in the assembly benefited greatly too.
Wow. That was quite a deep dive. The story of Cakkhupāla Thera is just stunning in its commitment, isn't it?
Oh.
But it also delivers this incredibly potent teaching from the Buddha.
Absolutely. And if we kind of zoom out, connect it to the bigger picture, it really hammers home that our intentions, the state of our mind, that's the real driver of our experience.
That's not just what we do.
Exactly. It's the mindset behind it that truly shapes the outcome. You see it perfectly with the Thera, his physical blindness. That was the result of a past unskillful intention, that anger from the doctor life. But his spiritual liberation, his arahantship, that came from his unwavering, skillful intention in his present life, that incredible resolve. Past karma manifested, yes, but present pure intention still led to freedom.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about those quiet thoughts, those unseen intentions that are bubbling under the surface and shaping our words and actions every single day. The power of the mind is just profound.
It really is. And maybe this raises a question for you listening right now. If your mind truly precedes everything, how much attention do you actually give to, cultivating the quality of your mind before you speak, before you act?
That is a powerful thought to mull over. What really stands out to you from this deep dive today? We really hope this journey into this ancient wisdom has given you some powerful insights to carry with you.